It was so bad. And the tray just went, all the coffee exploded. Have a nice day. And she goes, I won't, because you ruined it. Here's a celebrity story. Oh no, we have this high profile table and she's mad at me specifically. Hi friends, how are ya? Welcome back to my channel for a video that I wanted to do for so long, but I've been afraid to do it. Thanks to you guys in the comments of another video. You said you really wanted this, so here we are. Today, I'm gonna be telling you what it's really like to be a server at a restaurant. In this video, it might end up being long because there's 3 parts that I wanna cover in this video. First, I wanna tell you a ton of things about being a server that most people don't know. And if you are a patron at a restaurant, these might be good things to know so that if you want to be a good customer, they're good things to have in mind. And if you're a fellow server, it's just fun to relate on these things. Second, I want to go through on Instagram. I asked the rest of you what are things that you want to know about being a server / what are things you want to tell the world about being a server if you are one. And then third, I'm gonna end this video with some crazy, funny horror stories of things that have happened to me as a server that you just would not believe. Before we get into the rest of this video, I do want to mention real quick that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. I adore them. I will tell you more about them later, but in case you don't make it all the way through this video, because it's gonna be a long one, but a good one, so keep on watching. I do have a link down below for 2 free months. This goes really quickly because only a certain number of people can use it and it's completely free, so if you're interested, check that out down below, but I will tell you more about that in a minute. So I have been a server. I've worked in restaurants since the age of 16. I have been a host multiple places. I have been a busser. I have been a server, and I have actually worked on the line as a line cook. I worked pantry and I did some grill. If you're not familiar with that, that means I did all of the appetizers. I actually did some pastry too. So I did the desserts, I did the salads, and then I did a little bit on the grill. So it wasn't the most intense. It wasn't like saute or fry. But I have worked in and out of restaurants, and I was a server up until this February when I now do content creation full time. So because of that, I have so many things. I was nervous to make this video because I don't want to come across like I'm complaining or like I'm bad-mouthing or like I'm bashing, but as I said, I've put off this video for a long time and so many people kept requesting it. In fact, a video someone requested it and that comment got like 100 likes, so here we are. So let me pull up my notes. Part 1, things that you might not realize about being a server or things that happen frequently. I've talked about some other points before in a Q&A video and I won't reiterate those. Instead, I will link that Q&A video down below if you want to hear some of the other things. But okay, let's just start with this one. Being a server, so often, especially older people would ask me, so what are you studying? They would just assume I was in college when I actually had my degree. I was out of college, I was graduated, and in fact, at my particular restaurant, I would say a solid 70% of us actually had degrees. There was probably 10% of us were in college, 10% of us didn't go to college, 10% of us were in high school, and the other 70% of us had degrees. And I just think it's so funny that people assume that you would only be a server if you were in school. No way would you be a server outside of school, which is kind of rude. No, sir, actually, I choose to be here. And believe it or not, being a server, you can make a pretty good salary. There were some servers at my restaurant that would bring home $40,000, $50,000 a year and could make their own schedule. And if they didn't want to go into work that day, they could swap shifts with someone else and they didn't have to go into work that day. So there are some perks to being a server. And oftentimes, especially older people, don't realize that. One thing that tables try to do to help servers, and I really appreciate the intent behind it, I really, really do, is as you're bussing a table, they will try to hand you their plates. There is an art to bussing a table. There are certain plates we have to pick up in a certain order in order to stack as many plates as possible. So if someone were to try to hand me a plate, that plate might not fit on top of this plate, and if I were to try to fit that plate on top of this plate, I will drop all of the plates. So that's an awkward thing where you're kind of like, oh, I'll be back for that one, or like, okay, and you grab it and you have to make 2 trips to make it work then. What is actually helpful for servers is if you tidy up your table and just leave it on the table. So like if you were to stack your plates yourself, or if you just were to like put the little scraps of food on your plates. Or another one, this luckily didn't happen at my restaurant, but don't put your napkins in your cups. Just trying to tidy up the table and leave it there is the most helpful, and we appreciate that so much. Oh my gosh. Okay, my biggest pet peeve as a server. Every single second is valuable. You are literally running like a chicken with your head cut off the whole shift, and there's 15 things that you're just thinking through that you need to do next immediately. And oftentimes tables will say, oh, like I'm ready, and we'll wave you over, which that's another thing, waving you over. And then they'll want to be like, oh, you know what? Actually, a sandwich sounds kind of good. Maybe, do I want a salad? What do you think about, And you're like, can I come back? And oftentimes as a server, I'd be like, I'll give you a couple more minutes to think that over and I will be right back. Because, oh my gosh, when you're standing there listening to someone think, your stress just goes boop, 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 because you're wasting so much time and you're now behind on everything else that you were already behind on. Okay, this is me personally. I worked at a nice restaurant that had a wine list longer than our food list type of place. Tons of cocktails. One thing about me is I don't drink and never have drank. We had to take a lot of alcohol classes. Our restaurant was very big on education. We in fact had a rotating menu, and every time we had a new menu, we would have to sit for like a 3-hour class on it and pass an exam before we were able to be scheduled again. Like, they were big on education, but still, I knew nothing about our alcohol, especially wine. I know nothing about the wine. And so I would BS so much. People would ask me, oh, how is this wine? What are the notes on that? And I would always just say, oh, that one is very smooth. That one is very full-bodied. That one's nice and crisp. I would literally make things up all the time. And sometimes if I could tell they were really snobby, I'd be like, let me get you a taster of that wine, because I didn't know. I don't know anything about alcohol. Yeah, so I don't know if that's lying. That's lying. I would lie a lot about tasting notes for drinks. I'm sorry, Lord. Also about alcohol, I would literally pay my coworkers to open bottles for me. I was fine with opening wine bottles. After a while, I practice and practice and practice. I would actually go to Trader Joe's and buy like 10 bottles of the $3 wine and just practice at home. But champagne would terrify me. So for example, if a bottle of champagne was a $100 bottle, I would tell one of my coworkers, I'm gonna assume that they tip me 20%. So if you open the champagne for me, I will give you 20 bucks hard cash. Like, I will give you the tip on that. And oftentimes they would say yes, because I did not want to mess that up. I didn't want to take out someone's eye. No. Okay, one thing I want to address earlier in this video is tipping, because this is something that people often don't know. For me, at my restaurant, we were a nice restaurant, and in fact, we gave like fine dining service, even though we were kind of like a nice casual restaurant. So to be honest, I'm gonna be blatant here. I would expect 18 to 20% tips. And sometimes I would get 30% plus tips. There's some super nice people. If I got a tip below 15%, I would assume they didn't like my service. And that's just me being point blank. So average for me was 18 to 20 meant like, okay, they liked it. Above 20 was like, oh, they loved it. And below that, I was like, they didn't like it, or they're trying to say something here. One thing I want to tell people that don't work in restaurants about tips is the concept of tipping out. So as a server, my restaurant, we had to tip out the bussers in the bar. Other restaurants might have to tip out also hosts, also sometimes even the line cooks. It's crazy. And how tip outs work is we have to give a percentage of our sales to those people, not a percentage of our tips. That being said, if a customer leaves a bad tip or no tip, we, as the server, still have to tip out the percentage of their bill to the rest of the restaurant. So we, as a server, are literally paying out of pocket to serve you. I know it's crazy. I don't make the rules. That's how restaurants work. And when I was a busser, when I was a host, I appreciated the tip outs because that was the majority of my money, and I get it. I love it. But I think that oftentimes guests think all tips are a bonus, when sadly, especially in Texas, some servers make $2 an hour and tips is what they live off of. And so that being said, if you give a bad tip or no tip, the servers are paying for you to dine at the restaurant. It's terrible. It's a concept I hope everyone understands and realizes. I say before going out to eat, factor in 18% of your bill. If that is too expensive for you to eat at that restaurant, maybe go to a less expensive restaurant, which sounds really, really harsh, but it's just the fact of the matter. It's the system, and us as servers don't make the system. Oh, don't tell us you are allergic to something if you're intolerant or just avoiding it or whatever. The word allergic is a very serious word in the restaurant world. The word allergic in my restaurant, I have to ring in a very specific ticket for an allergy. The chef has to then tell everyone on the line to wash their hands, change their gloves, clean their cookware, clean their surface, or get a new surface. Sometimes the chef will go and do the cook's job instead. Then it has to get double eyes. Then a manager has to run this out to the table to ensure that you are getting the correct dish, to ensure it is allergen free, to avoid any potential lawsuits of you going into anaphylactic shock. And so many times, tables would tell me they were allergic, and I would go through this whole protocol that inconveniences essentially the whole restaurant. And then they would start eating off their friend's plate. And I'd be like, oh, no, that has gluten, or that has dairy, or like I would freak out, and they'd be like, oh, it's not like a big deal. And I'd be like, okay, cool, sweet. If you want to tell us you're intolerant, please do, and we will accommodate. We will make sure that we direct you in the proper direction for the foods you're trying to avoid. But just don't use the word allergic if you're not allergic. I have so many, but I'm gonna go through 3 more of my own points before diving into Instagram. One thing, honestly, this didn't annoy me at all, but this annoyed my coworkers so much, is people that camp out at tables. So some restaurants work on a rotation, meaning the first table goes to A, second table goes to B, third table goes to C, fourth table goes back to server A, so on and so forth. So it's very evenly divided. Most restaurants like mine have sections, meaning these 4 tables or these 6 tables are my section. So whoever sits at this table, I'm going to have. So then people would, order a dinner, they would close out their check, and then they would sit in what we call camp out for sometimes 4, 5 hours. And we would ask them, can I get you anything else? Would you like another drink? Would you like dessert maybe? And they'd say, no. I wouldn't mind, because personally, I was not the type of server that really cared about making a lot of money. I was more concerned with doing a good job and not being too stressed. Most servers, they are there to make money, obviously. That it's their job, and they want to maximize their time there. So when a table camps out, instead of having a 4-table section, they now have a 3-table section, and their earnings are 25% less. I would say, if you're gonna camp out, order dessert, order another round of drinks, or don't. When you close out, leave. This is why I didn't want to make this video. I sound so mean. I'm just being honest. Oh, I hope y'all know I'm just being honest. Okay, one thing that this might vary depending on different POS systems that a restaurant has, meaning like a point of sale system. For my restaurant, it was so difficult if people wanted to split checks a million ways and saying like, this person has like this entree, this app, this drink. This person has these 2 appetizers, this whatever. That would become so difficult in our POS system, like trying to like add different checks, split things off, move things around, print all those checks, hand them to the correct people. That's a nightmare, stresses us the heck out. What I didn't mind is if someone said, can you split this 4 ways evenly? Or can you put $75 on this card, $30 on this card, and the remaining on this card? That was significantly easier because I wouldn't have to split tabs onto all of these different checks. I could just do the math and deduct. So that's something that people might not realize, is either percentages or flat out dollar amounts is way easier than itemizing receipts. And the last thing, this is something that people would do all the time. I think a lot of times people forget that servers are humans, and my favorite thing about the job was being able to have human connection with all these new people all day, every day. One thing that would happen all the time is I would go up to a new table and I'd go to tell them hi, and I'd be like, hi, how are you? And they'd be like, can I have a water? And I'd be like, glad you're doing well. I'm great. Thanks for asking. I'll be back with that water. Obviously, I would never say that out loud, but in my head, I'd be like, all right, you don't see me as a human? Got it, cool. Now, maybe that's just instinct or reflex. Maybe those people didn't mean it, but it was just very dehumanizing. If you're going to a restaurant, it goes so far to look your server in the eye and to smile and either say, I'm doing great, thanks so much, or be like, I'm awesome, how are you? Whatever you want to say, just acknowledge their existence as a human. It goes so far. Okay, I'm gonna go through some of the Instagram things, the questions, and the things that y'all wanted to share with people. And then I can't wait to share some of my stories with you. Ugh, I should have made this into 3 different videos, honestly. I could do a part 2 because there's so much more. So let me know if you want a part 2 down below. One of my good friends asked, is it annoying if a customer asks you to pick between a few options? I don't think that's annoying personally, because me as a server, I would like to connect with with my guests, given there were some days that I was just so overwhelmed that I was all about efficiency. And I would say, just be good about reading body language. Obviously, if a server is more relaxed and is there to chat, I loved that. I loved getting to talk to you about your food and making sure that you have the best experience possible. There are some days, I'm not gonna lie, that I was like, I don't know the salad, you know, because I would just be so stressed. But more often than not, I actually really enjoyed that. Someone said, this is kind of random, but can you talk about your mental health and motivation through it? I am an extroverted person for the most part, so I enjoyed getting to talk to guests and it would energize me. But I am a strong person and I would cry, we would all cry frequently. Sometimes the stress is just too much to handle. Sometimes people are just so incredibly rude that it's heartbreaking. And I remember so many times that we had a very slow water fountain. We had this like super fancy triple purified water thing at our restaurant, and it would take 18 seconds to fill each glass, which is an eternity in server time. And I would sit there count, especially if you have like a 10 top, that's 180 seconds. That is 3 minutes of your life filling up just waters. But I would be sitting there and there'd be a line of my coworkers behind me and I would just say over and over, I don't want to be a server. I don't want to be a server. I can't do this. I can't do this. Why did I do this? Why am I a server? Why am I a server? And I would literally want to quit on the spot. But more often than not, I would be like, I love the freedom of this job. I love my coworkers. I had the best coworkers, which restaurant culture can be really toxic. So I'm honored that my restaurant hired genuinely good people. All the people that was hired at my restaurant were people very similar to me with my same personality and ambitions, and we all had creative endeavors outside of work. So I loved that aspect of the job, but there were some days that I just would break down and straight up cry and straight up want to quit on the spot because it's a lot. It's a lot. Ooh. A celebrity who surprised you, who you thought would be rude but is actually nice. We would get a lot of celebrities. We're a restaurant in LA. We're a nice restaurant. My favorite was Matthew Gary Goobler? What's his middle name? Criminal Minds. Spencer Reed, Criminal Minds. He would come once a week and he was the nicest guy. He would come alone, he would bring a drawing pad and he would draw and he would just sit there, and every time he remembered by name. Every time he would say, Michelle, you're gorgeous today. How are you? How are things going? And he'd be like, I am so excited for my meal. I think I'm gonna try something new. And he's like, what do you think about this? And I would bring it to him, and honestly, we would make mistakes sometimes. Sometimes things would be wrong. He was so forgiving. He was like, this is delicious. This is the best thing ever. And he would always tip like 50%. He was the best tipper, the nicest human. Fans would come up to him all the time. Like while I would talk to him, be like, can I get a picture? And he was so generous. He'd always be like, oh my gosh, yes, like let's get a picture. How are you? And I told him, I was like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry that these people keep bothering you, but you were just so kind. And he was like, oh, no, like don't mention it. The nicest guy. Like, I always loved Criminal Minds and I was an Agent Morgan kind of girl. I loved Agent Morgan, but now watching it back, I'm like, Spencer Reed, I love you, you sweetheart. He's exactly like his character. I think they wrote the character around him. I want to say that so many of you just want to know how to be a better customer, and if you are watching this video to be a better customer, I can already assure you that you are the best customer because you are being intentional and you care. And the people that care mean so much because they are hard to come by, to be honest. So thank you for wanting to be a good customer. Some people wanted to know if you could tell who would be a bad tipper. I don't want to get in trouble for stereotyping, but yes, 100% it was easy to tell. Young kids, like below high school, they don't know any better. They would tip crap. It's fine. Interestingly enough, young 20s and 30s would normally tip pretty good. And then older age people were 50-50. They would either give the best tips or the worst tips. Also, if someone was obviously not from the US, I know tipping is a very American thing and is not prevalent in other countries. You could pretty much expect a very low tip or no tip, but I never faulted those people because it is a cultural thing. But they were also always very nice people, so I appreciated that. The craziest thing, the most difficult personalities, the people that would literally make me cry were the same people that would give no tip. And the kindest, easiest, just genuinely good and fun humans that I would serve for free because I just enjoyed getting to talk to them and hang out with them, they would be the most generous with tips, which is always so interesting to me. It's so interesting to me. I could deep dive into that psychologically, but I'll let you do that. Server nightmares. Oh, yes, literally. Every night after work, I would go to bed and I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be like, I didn't bring table 4 ranch. It haunts you. And back when I was a line cook too, I would wake up in the middle of the night because I thought I could hear the ticket machine going off, meaning like I was running more and more behind on orders. I would literally hear like phantom ticket noises all the time. Don't your feet hurt? Oh yeah. I tracked my steps at work. I would walk anywhere between 3 and 8 miles a shift in like a 6-hour shift. Oh, this is a good one. Coming in 5 minutes before closing. Oftentimes 5 minutes before closing, we are already shutting down. Kitchen is wrapping up their food in the back. They are starting to clean the equipment. We have started polishing silverware and cleaning the table bases and doing all of that. One thing I always do before I go out to eat to a restaurant is I check the hours online. And honestly, this is me because I have been in a restaurant my whole life. If it is closing within an hour, I don't go. But you know, I would say the last 15 minutes when people come in, the staff does all let out a giant sigh at the same time. They all go, and then they start fighting over who has to take that table. They're like, nose goes, you have it. I don't want it. I already did my checkout. I don't want that table. Just be mindful of when a restaurant's closing. Something nice. What do I love most about being a server? I genuinely loved every single human I worked with. There will always be 1 or 2 people that stress you out when you work with 50 people at once, but almost like every single person at my restaurant I would be best friends with in real life, which is so rare. Like I said, I've worked at so many restaurants. So once you go through a shift together with people that you love, it's like what I imagine a lesser version of like going through war with a person feels like, and no one understands you like those people, and you have seen each other cry, you have seen each other rejoice at great tips, you have seen each other become so embarrassed when you drop a whole plate of food. Like, you have seen all of it. I've literally had coworkers pass out on me and I caught her like in the kitchen. Like, you see all of it of each other. So I just love that camaraderie of when you go through so much difficulty together. I miss all of my coworkers so much and I keep in contact with a lot of them, but just that relationship is so special. It's something that you don't get unless you just really have to struggle as a group. Okay, my favorite part of this video is so freaking long. I have some crazy stories, some funny stories, some embarrassing stories, some horror stories. So we're gonna get into that for the third part of this video, but real quick, I do wanna tell you a little bit more about Skillshare because obviously now I'm no longer a server because I work in the creative field full time, and Skillshare was one of the things that helped me to make that transition because Skillshare is a way that I got a ton of different skills under my belt to build my own business, to be able to now work for myself full time. So look at how I incorporated that into this video. So I've worked with Skillshare once a month for well over a year now because I love them. I actually start off every single morning watching a Skillshare class. It just revs me up for the day. If you're not familiar with them, they are an online learning community and they literally have thousands of classes about everything you could ever imagine. There's creative classes, there's business classes. I just watched a class earlier this week by a guy named Thomas Frank, all about productivity. Then I realized he had a YouTube channel and now I've binged his whole channel, but it's really cool to find just things that make you feel inspired every single day. It's curated for learning, so there's no ads. You can watch, 5 minutes of a class at a time. You can binge the whole thing. You could do it at your own time. And if you get an annual premium subscription, it comes out to about $10 a month, which I always say this, $10 a month, my matcha lattes from Blue Bottle are $7.50. So for the cost of a matcha latte and a half, I completely changed my life's trajectory and built my own career. Sounds dramatic, but it's true. The offer that they always give to my channel is honestly the most generous and wonderful thing ever. So with the link down below, you can have 2 months of their premium trial for free. You can cancel it after the 2 months if you want, but you can learn so many valuable skills in 2 months for free, and there's only a limited number of people that can use the link. So if you're interested, I suggest clicking on that quickly so that you can have that opportunity. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring today's video. I love you forever, and I'm just always honored to work with you because I stand behind you 100%. And now, let me tell you a couple of my crazy stories. Oh gosh, where do I start? A lot of people wanted to know if I've ever dropped anything. Luckily, it wasn't as frequent of an occurrence as I thought it would be for me. Some people dropped more things than other people, and I'm actually a very clumsy person, so I'm surprised it didn't happen more. But once a table ordered, it was probably like 6 different coffees, and we have, our little, why can't I think of what that's called? Saucer, right? Yeah, with a coffee cup on top, and I was carrying that on a tray with 6 saucers and coffee cups all the way full, and the table was seated at their table. obviously, but the table to the left of them was empty. And I was like, oh cool, I'm just gonna slide this tray onto this table and then I can bring everyone their coffee one by one instead of having to like do this whole thing, which is a balancing act of itself. So I go to slide this coffee tray onto the table next to them and I take my hand away a second too soon. I think it's halfway on, but it's like 40% on. So the 60% to go over the 40% and the tray just went and of course, all the glassware broke, shattered, all the coffee exploded. The tables are only probably this far apart. So the two people at the end of the table were covered in coffee. It was so embarrassing and it was such a mess. And honestly, I kind of blacked out after that point. I don't remember who cleaned it. I'm sure I did, but I don't remember even cleaning it up. Oh my gosh, there was this guy. I wish I could remember this full conversation, but the end of this conversation will stick with me forever. He kept asking all of these questions about this like chicken sauté dish that we had. So it was basically like a shish kebab chicken kind of. And he kept asking all of these questions about like how much is it? Like how large are the servings? Everything. It's just a very difficult human. I wish I could remember all the questions he asked. And he finally was like, well, I don't know if I want it or not. Can you show it to me? And I was like, can I show it to you? What do you mean? He's like, can you bring out the raw chicken so I can see what the chicken cutlets look like? And I was like, you want me to bring out pieces of raw chicken? It's chicken. And my manager was like, no way, that breaks so many safety protocols. We could never do that. The things people ask you are crazy. They're crazy. Oh, here's one. A lot of people wanted to know if I got asked out a lot or harassed a lot. And long story short, yes, getting a ring on my finger was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I went from getting probably 4 to 6 phone numbers a night to just like 1 phone number a night. People that just didn't care that I was engaged or married. But this one guy, he came back like an hour after they had left and was just like kind of standing in the patio. And I was like, can I help you? He was like, yes, I just wanted to ask, could I take you out? Like, do you want to come over? Like, do you want to go on a date? And I was like, oh, here we go again. Run of the mill. And I said, I'm very flattered, thank you, but I'm married. And he goes, okay. And I was like, so no. And he said, oh, actually, that's my wife right there. And pointed to a lady like 5 feet behind him and was like, and we were wondering if you'd like to go on a date. And I was like, no. I'm just gonna leave that story there. Oh, this one is crazy. There was a birthday party for this probably 40, 50-year-old lady. So her children were adult children and they had probably like 20 people there for this dinner. They were very difficult. It was not my table, but there was only 2 servers in that room. So I had the other half of the room and a coworker of mine had her as a table. And the son came up ahead of time and was like, it's my mom's birthday. As her present, I want to pay for this dinner. And the server was like, oh, awesome, great. The lady came up to the server and was like, if anybody asks you to pay for this, tell them no. And so the server was put in this awkward position of like, well, who do I listen to? And she decided it's this lady's birthday. If someone else at the table wants to treat her to her birthday dinner, I'm gonna let them do that. Like, that's probably the right thing to do in this scenario. Well, dinner comes to a conclusion and my coworker brings the check to the son. The lady freaks out. The lady tells her family to leave. She tells everybody to leave. And she stands in the middle of the dining room and starts like not over exaggerating, yelling at my coworker. She was like, you gave me your word that you wouldn't let anybody pay for this, blah, 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 blah. This is my birthday. That is totally disrespectful. And my coworker was like, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I did not know what to do. Your son wanted to pay for your birthday dinner. So I told him, sure. And the lady literally said, you ruined my birthday. My coworker was like, I am so sorry. And the lady storms off, says some profanities, and my coworker's like, have a nice day. And she turns around, she goes, I won't, because you ruined it. And like leaves. Sorry, that woke up Max. And my coworker like literally just started crying. It's like a funny story in hindsight, but in the moment we were just like, who knew that that would lead to this? Like a good deed almost would lead to this. It's so hard to know what is right sometimes in some situations with people. It is hard. Oh, so once there was an event. The Pasadena Convention Center or whatever was right behind us, and they had something called a speaker series where they would bring in like these political guests and very prestigious people to speak about boring things. And they would charge like $1,000 a ticket, and like thousands of people would go. The first time they did this, we did not know it was happening, and apparently on their website they put our restaurant as the ideal restaurant to dine at. This was a random Wednesday night maybe, and a very slow season, so I think we had 4 servers on, which we are a big restaurant. Our restaurant had well over 100 tables, and there was about 4 servers on. And our regional manager at the time had come into the restaurant, and all of these people started pouring in. My regional manager was like, we can't turn these people away. Our restaurant, it was average to have between 4 and 6 tables because our level of standard was so high. Like, we had to do so many particular things for a table, so many things. So we had smaller sections, and obviously there were higher bills because it was a nicer restaurant. So that's an average size. I ended up taking on 18 tables at the same time. 18. Over 4 times the amount of tables that is average. And then a birthday party walks up and says, we have a reservation for 24. And we check our system and it's not there. They're like, we made a reservation. And we were like, it's not in our system. So we let them go onto the patio, like have one of the like private patios to themselves. And I had to take it. So I had 18 tables and a 24 top. And these ladies didn't sit down. We're all just moving around, ordering different things. So I didn't know which person ordered what and where to bring it. And then they all wanted separate checks. And I have never been more stressed out in my life, having 18 tables and dealing with that at the same time. I literally would go up to a table and like all of my skills were out the window. I'd say, hi, what can I get you? And I would just like ring everything in once and then basically just bring them the check later because that's all I had time to do. It was so bad. It was so bad. I was a very bad server that day, but I was like well over what anybody should have to do. And then here's a celebrity story. One celebrity that came in, I might not call her out specifically because I don't want to be like that TikTok hostess that made the news, but there was an actress who is frequently on The Office, very famous. She's nice, but we had a misunderstanding. She was one of my tables, and they kind of all ordered, you know, a ton of different appetizers and entrees, and they kind of wanted to do it family style, except for her. She ordered just one thing for herself. And so I asked her, one thing that we have to ask our tables is, do you want this all out at the same time? Do you want it out as ready? Do you want me to course this out for you? Like, how do you want to enjoy this experience? She was like, oh, as ready. And I was like, cool, awesome. So we ring everything in as ready. That means as soon as the kitchen finishes a dish, they will send it out. Her dish was probably the most complicated dish out of everything, and she was the only person not sharing anything. So all these people are having all the different appetizers and stuff for probably like 30 minutes before her entree comes out, because that's how she wanted to ring it in, was as ready. She threw a little bit of a fit, even though I had asked her. My manager had to calm her down and give her dessert and discounts and stuff. Later, I think that someone else at her table, I think it was maybe her daughter or something, kind of reminded her like, Mom, the server asked you, like, if you wanted it this way, and you said yes. She ended up apologizing, which is great, so sweet. But she was like, you know what, I realized that you asked me how I wanted this, and that's just how it happened. So I'm sorry. And I was relieved, because in the minute I was like, oh no, we have this high profile table and she's mad at me specifically. Like, things couldn't get worse. So there's one like more difficult celebrity encounter. But oftentimes they were actually very, very nice, genuine people that would come in, which is great and shocking. Go Hollywood. You have your flaws, but you have some good people. Oh man, this video was like 40 minutes pre-edited. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want a part 2, I'm sure there's so much more that I didn't even have time to get into, but I had so much fun filming this. This is by far one of the juiciest videos I've ever filmed. I normally stay pretty lighthearted and optimistic, but not for this one. I love y'all with my absolute whole heart. Thank you for watching this all the way through. I hope you have the best rest of your day. Be kind to servers, tip them well. If you are a server, hang in there. I love you. You got this. You're killing it. And I will see you in a video very soon. Bye.